Well, woo! It is cattle call time. Imagine that. To celebrate, I even got me a brand new cowboy hat. Well, it looks like a cowboy hat, the sales clerk said. And best of all, it's got this elastic band that doesn't hurt my head. Well, I've been up here about 4 years to recite my poetry, but recently the thought had occurred to me. I've spoke about jeeps, trains, and miners of yore, try to entertain y'all and not to bore. But I haven't talked about cowboys, and that meant it was time to tell you about this true event. But to rhyme this, oh, it was quite the battle. So I simply called it Beat Top Cattle. Now, many of you young'uns may not know how sugar beets down here used to grow. That old root stretched way down in the ground, and a big spiked wheels would spear them up, and then going round up on high, a sickle bar would cut off the green top, and down to the ground in a row they would drop. But them tops, they were full of sugar, oh so sweet, and cattle were used to turn that sugar to meat. Why, grazing fees might be $40 an acre if the farmer was in luck. And the cattle, they loved them tops that were about the size of a hockey puck. Once in a while in his haste, a steer eating a big top would choke. But we'd push it on through with a length of heater hose. That there's no joke. I remember it clearly. It was early one fine day in mid-June. Dawn hadn't yet broke. We saddled up by the light of the moon. We hurried to the freshly dug feed field on the south edge of town. Them cattle trucks arrived just before dawn. There were 5 of them with 100 head apiece. Them drivers were anxious for the door latches to release. I peered through the slots in those trailers. They was a hauling. Them calves were milling around, their voices were bawling. It was just getting light now in the coming day, and I saw they was Bremens, mostly blues and grays. They was clattering to and fro, they had humps on their backs. I was thinking it kind of looked like a shark attack. Well, we was ready, and the drivers opened them doors up wide, and suddenly them wild calves were no longer inside. Now, the object was to keep them bunched up and calm. Kind of let them trot in a circle, hoping nothing would go wrong. The plan would be to let them slowly approach that single strand wire. They would nose at it and then feel that electric fire. Once they learned where the wire was, our job would be almost done. They'd be afeard of it, and they wouldn't run. Well, we kept them all bunched up at first. Then what happened was what we feared the worst. A leader broke away from the pack with 6 more following. We had to get them back. But them Bremen calves, man, they was fast. They could truly run. 4 of us cowboys took off after them. We wouldn't be outdone. We knew when they hit that wire that won the West that they would really give that single strand a test. They hit it at a dead-on full run, and twang! Over that broken wire they sprang. Down into the drain ditch and up the other side they flew, and then they headed into town, right up Palm Avenue. Well, we had to detour our horses down a ways to a culvert to cross that ditch. With the head start they had, we knew catching them would be a real, well, you get the idea. Now, running iron-shod horses on pavement, that just ain't a good mix. One errant slip and you'd be in a real fix. From our horses' hooves, the sparks were a-flying. That it was getting pretty western, there was no denying. We was gaining ground on them dogies, catching them quick. It wouldn't be long now, because we was a traveling But those dang little brainless didn't stop for the red light. We finally got them cornered in the Brawley Tractor Parts alley, and a quick count told us we had the right tally. Well, we was doing great till a Brawley police car arrived. He turned on his siren, and sakes alive, off went that leader just like a blue streak through a vacant lot and across the street. After him I rode and shook out my loot, just as he crashed through a backyard chicken coop. Now, I was never too good at roping. To catch a calf, I would almost have to beg. I tossed my loop and managed to catch his head and one front leg. I dallied a turn or two around my saddle horn, just as the calf disappeared into a shed door next to a little barn. Oh man, from that room there erupted a most terrible scream. Out came the calf with the rope wrapped around a wringer washing machine. A very mad grandma also emerged from that room, cussing like a sailor and wielding a broom. She swung hard and whacked my frightened cayuse. He crow-hopped, and from the saddle I was loose. I landed smack dab in the middle of a muddy rose bed. In fact, I think I still got one of them thorns stuck up here in my head. With a rein in my left hand and a rope in the other, the calf, my horse, and I sped out of reach of that mean old grandmother. That calf was dragging me, my horse, the washer, and 6 feet of chain-link fence. Why, just the sight of the flying chicken feathers alone would make a man wince. I was finally able to throw him down off his feet and tie him up with my piggin string out there in the street. I stood over him, bloody, muddy, and just about out of wind. And I swear his face was wearing a grin. Well, a 2-way radio call for help had gone out, and more cowboys arrived, and I gave them a shout. We loaded that doggy up, and then at last, we'd caught all the escapees. The emergency was passed. We hauled them back to the field and set them free, then shaded up for a rest there under a tree. I swear to the truth of the aforementioned events. Well, maybe there is just a tad of poetic license. And if you're ever thinking about entering the cowboy profession, my advice when choosing a steed, use a lot of discretion. You'll need a strong horse that can really ski-daddle, especially if you're going to be running beat-top cattle. So this tale's over, folks. That there is the ending. Thanks be to God and Pat and Benton.